go back. I said go back. Perfect. Actually, not really. This game definitely has some issues, which could have something to do with it being released in 2009. Okay, some context is definitely warranted for, so let's get that out of the way first. For starters, this game was originally released as IL-2 Sturmovik Birds of Prey. If you don't know what IL-2 Sturmovik is, it's a long-running World War II era air combat series, or combat flight simulators if you want to get official, and also the name of a plane used by the Soviet. Back on the subject, the IL-2 Sturmovik series is developed and owned by 1C. Birds of Prey can be considered an exception in the series as it was developed by, you guessed it, Gaijin. This game was their first foray into anything World War II or air combat. In fact, it's their second international game. Their first Russian games don't even have wiki pages. Still, this game was what set them off on the path to warthunder. After this, they developed Birds of Steel on their own this time, which was then developed further into warthunder. Hence the old historical campaigns that still existed in warthunder up until last summer. However, unlike Birds of Steel, which was only released on consoles, IL-2 Sturmovik Birds of Prey released on PC as well, under the name Wings of Prey. And thanks to that, you can still buy and play it today. You can find it on Steam, but under a separate developer page. Gaijin has 2 dev pages likely related to them changing their base of operations to Hungary or GOG. The Steam reviews will tell you to get it off GOG, so I recommend doing that. You might be worried about an old game not working properly on today's computers, but besides some crashes and freezes and the game having an outdated control scheme, it works just fine with no need for mods or config fuckery, on a Windows 10 at least. Alright, now that the intro is over, let's start playing the game you came here for. Starting the game from the executable will boot you into a launcher. I'd normally not talk about a game's launcher, but remember that this is an old game, the type of old where you can only change graphics settings by restarting the game or from the launcher. Wings of Prey belongs to the latter group. Other than that, you have some sensitivity options that can also be changed in the game. I have no idea what this unmarked mystery setting does. I thought it might invert your vertical controls, but it doesn't. Not all the settings are displayed here. For the rest, you need to go into the in-game options menu. Let's check out the tutorial first. Not like we have a choice on that matter actually. The game requires you to complete the 3 basic tutorial missions before you can play the main campaign missions. Oh well, it's supposed to work like that. I didn't actually test it. They're fairly easy obviously. The first one starts by teaching you the controls. Wait, arrow keys? Oh no. Emergency controller plugin activate. Okay, it doesn't recognize that I've plugged in the controller. How do you solve this conundrum? Well, you need to quit out to the menu, go back into the options, select devices, scroll all the way down, and then click on select layout at the bottom left, which will allow you to use your controller. That is a lot of expensive hardware that I don't have, so we'll be going with the default gamepad option. Let's do that again. Okay, another issue. I don't like playing with inverted controls and this game has them inverted by default. Fun fact, we went over an option to revert it back in the settings, but I'll only remember to turn it on after having finished the tutorials, so enjoy my terrible aim for the next minute or so. The next tutorial isn't that much different. You get to shoot a single bomber plane though. Just one. Hang on, is this foreshadowing? Hello, this is the 3rd tutorial mission and your objective is to shoot down 40 bombers. Have fun, dumbass.
Select the bombers that are flashing. There you'll be selecting target. Hold down the button. Select the bombers that are flashing. There you'll be selecting target. Hold down the button. There you'll be flashing. There you'll be selecting target. Hold down the button. Select the bombers that are flashing. Outstanding. Now you know how useful the target camera can be. I may have had my doubts in the beginning, but I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. You're a good shot after all.
Well, at least that's the tutorials completed. Okay, well, I also went ahead and finished the other tutorials, but I'd rather not bore you or myself writing the script by going into extra details, so let's do them rapid fire. Extra Tutorial 1. Being a wing leader, learn to give commands to allied planes. If you played single player War Thunder, you might remember the Extra Lives system, aka your wingmen, who are marked green on the minimap. In this game, you can give them orders, ranging from attack that guy, protect me, and nothing else. Unfortunately, this system is not very functional. The cover me command is particularly terrible, and giving commands to attack requires targets to either be mission objectives or be actively targeted by the player. Fun fact number 2, targeting isn't bound to any button on the controller by default. Extra tutorial number 2. Play as a bomber. This is literally identical to how bombers play in War Thunder. Extra tutorial number 3, learn how to take off, which is literally just as simple as putting your thrust to 100%. Holy shit, this game is just like War Thunder, who could have known? Shoot some seriously powerful rockets, these things are borderline overpowered, and definitely do not belong in a World War II game. Whatever, go back to land at the same airfield.
Drop the throttle. Outstanding.
Extra tutorial number 4, kill a bunch of BF-109s. That's it. And finally, extra tutorial number 5, realistic mode, where your plane will stall at every fucking turn. The AI won't be adhering to the same rules as you are, as in they'll still be an arcade, while you're unsurprisingly way slower to the point you can't ever catch up with them. Yeah, I couldn't actually finish this one. After a 20-minute struggle in the realistic tutorial, I did not bother trying the simulator one. Campaign! This is what you came here for, probably. So let's do it! Wings of Prey has an episodic campaign system, so while it starts during the Battle of Britain, we'll be moving on to another theater after only 4 missions. All theaters are played from the Allied point of view. Each of these mini campaigns making up the game starts with a long cutscene, aka archive footage with a voiceover, telling you about the historical context. Unfortunately, the voice acting is awful, even compared to the often questionable quality of War Thunder voiceovers, so I think I'll just do the context thing myself, thanks.
Sir Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, responded with the famous speech. "We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender."
For the first mini-campaign, I'll be going mission by mission, describing each mission briefly in order to give you a full view on what these campaigns play like. But after that, I'll instead give you a more general overview of the campaigns and mention highlights, or lowlights, instead, since there are quite a large number of missions in this game. Not only that, you also have the single missions category, that contains even more missions to complete. But we will not be doing those in this video, except for the Wings of the Luftwaffe DLC. Yes, this game has a DLC, we'll get to that later. Starting the first actual mission, it's unsurprisingly simple and unremarkable.
There's Nova. See Nova Castle to the left. Almost 1,000 years old, that is. They call it the key to England. I know. I went to that place when I was at school.
You pilot a Hurricane and shoot down a couple bombers. It is the first campaign mission, so I wasn't expecting much. After you're done, you have the optional objective of landing back at the airfield. War Thunder had the same mechanic on its own historical campaign. There it was entirely pointless. Here it is still entirely pointless, but you get like 2 short voice lines for doing it.
Here we are, Hawking. Good to be home.
But the mission doesn't end automatically if you choose to do this, so you then have to quit out manually. Spoiler, I will not be completing this optional objective on any other mission because it requires covering a huge amount of distance just for like 2 voice lines. Maybe. The second mission is probably the best one this mini campaign has to offer.
Hey, Doc, what's that weird contraption below? That's the radar. Fighter command's eyes and ears. It can see the Luftwaffe all the way across the channel.
Your objective is to defend naval vessels from bomber attacks, juggling between different points of conflict, though in particular the mission is elevated by its radio chatter, even if the quality of the voice acting remains questionable.
This is Brown. I'm leading the bombers. We need assistance here. I have a 109 on my tail. Help! I can't shake him. Someone help, please.
Oh bother! A heavy fighter plane trying to kill me. If it's no big deal, may I kindly ask you to take care of it?
Thank you, Lance. Without you, we'd be done for. Cheerio. Keep doing your job. Returning to Hawkinge.
Oh, and I'd like you to also enjoy this after-mission cutscene that I earned for not landing.
Owen Reichsteiger, July 13th, 1940. I can't get the thought of drowning men out of my head. Luckily up there we can't really see what goes on when a ship is sunk, but I can imagine the terror. We've just been told HMS Cossack made it to its final destination, but I know that too many others didn't. We tried our best, but it was next to useless. The Luftwaffe are just too great in number. For every plane I shot out of the sky, 3 more took its place. I don't know what to do. None of us do. We're tired and angry. This feels like suicide. I've been stuck at the airbase and unable to continue to fight. We tried and passed the time by playing dominoes, but I'm useless. And I've already lost my sweet ration for the rest of the week to Richie Llewellyn. He's a bit of a hustler.
I call it a cutscene, but the subtitles are wildly out of sync. It's just a bunch of jump cuts coupled together with a voiceover. Oh my god, I remember this from somewhere, don't I?
I fielded a surprise attack. Submarine, air, or combined on Pearl Harbor is a possibility.
Anyways, mission 3. Thankfully we're doing something different, if the exact opposite of the last mission counts it different for you, that is. Though in reality this mission is just sad. Remember the old ship models in War Thunder where they had barely any anti-air but were tanky as hell? Well, this is it. You have 2 small bombs. The explosion radius seems to tell otherwise, but their damage doesn't, that you use to destroy ships with. They replenish on their own, but again their damage is pitiful, so it takes multiple passes to destroy a single ship, and these are destroyers by the way. You need to destroy 3. Fun. Destroy some fighters after that and the mission's over.
Outstanding. Time to return to base.
Hello! Mission 4. Do you like shooting bombers?
Attack a small flight of enemy bombers.
Do you see those bombers? Well, shoot them all down.
Attention, we've located a large formation of HE-111s. All squadrons scramble to intercept. We must force the bombers to jettison their payloads or turn back home. Your objective is to damage the bombers.
Besides being a War Thunder fighter player's wet dream, or worst nightmare since these guys actually fly in a formation even if they're inaccurate as hell, and looking like a fireworks show with all the guns firing, there isn't anything else to show here.
Where's the 257? The bombers are almost at Dover. Keep attacking until your guns stop firing. We must defend Dover. Hello, fighters. We're under attack by a group of Junkers planes. We need your help. Reinforcements will deal with the bombers. Let's protect the ship. Understood, Glasgow. We'll deal with the Stukas.
You eventually get directed to the harbor to shoot down some Stukas. And yeah, that's the British campaign done. The next mini-campaign is the Battle of Stalingrad. It's fairly short, comprising only 3 missions, with each mission representing a certain stage of the battle. So we have the first mission that represents the initial German attack into the Stalingrad area, where you battle the enemy for air superiority. Then you have the second mission showing the two sides battling in urban combat, you helping your own side through CAS. Finally you have the third mission being the Soviet counterattack against the now encircled and very fucked German army, where the now undisputed Soviets decide to use CAS planes for bomber hunting. I mean, it works, so no comments. Unfortunately, this mini-campaign, while short, is a bit painful. This stems from a variety of issues to be expected since you're doing something wildly different each mission. That I do appreciate because it was sorely lacking in the previous mini-campaign, but you're let down by bugs. I know I said I wouldn't go mission by mission, but I encountered issues that I want to whine about in every mission, besides maybe the second one, but that's the highlight, so it'll get mentioned anyway. So, first mission, the enemy fighters which I needed to kill would just fly away from the town for like 7 kilometers before turning back, and the fighter you're in is way too slow to catch up to them even at full speed. Keep in mind I'm blasting WEP, or emergency power, and even that fails to get me any closer. So it just evolves into a waiting game for them to turn around and come back towards you. Fun. Plus they also drag all of your friendly AI behind them, which slows things down even further when the runner finally dies and the next wave spawns in immediately, like 10 kilometers away. Oh, and you'll again have runners going back to Germany on a single fucking fuel tank from this new wave?
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
The second mission is the most interesting and easily the best one in this campaign, with the variety of objectives you get, starting with scouting,
A real plane, plywood or something. The flak is real enough though.
and then bombing, and finally an escape section.
Planes are following you.
The only real problem I have with it are the inconsistent bombs, because they can just fail to destroy heavier targets even when dropped fairly close. Though I may have also just been hitting buildings, or possibly the bomb site is lying to me. On the other hand, this also happens to be the mission where I discovered just how overpowered rockets are in this game. They have barely any drop, they have a huge explosion radius, and guided missile level of aim assistance. The third mission is the worst offender, however, as you're very tightly time limited. It is also a long mission, so if you fail because 2 bombers just managed to get a little bit too far on their journey while you were busy shooting at them and you were gonna kill them in like 10 seconds, yeah, I'm a bit frustrated. You have to restart from the beginning if you fail, don't blame me. Great set pieces, night battle, spotlights illuminating the dark sky, but let down by what would from a glance appear to be minor issues. Next up, we have the invasion of Sicily. This is the longest mini-campaign this game has to offer, comprising 5 missions. There isn't a progressive narrative in this one though, unlike in Stalingrad, with 4 out of 5 of these missions taking place pre-invasion over enemy skies as raids. This also means there's not much variation between the tasks you get during a mission. You'll usually be doing a combination of air superiority, destroying enemy fighters, and CAS, bombing enemy tanks. But you do get to play 3 different planes to compensate, so even with the repetition of the tasks, I would personally rate this mini-campaign higher than the Stalingrad one because I didn't encounter any bugs this time. I did struggle a little with the overwhelming amount of fighters the game throws at you, but with unlimited respawns, yes, I didn't want to restart missions because I died at 90% of the way in. Boo-hoo. It's only a minor issue. The highlight of this campaign for me is Mission 3. The A-20 is a beast of a fucking plane and just will not die. A dozen fighters all shooting at you? No worries, the A-20 eats 20mm for breakfast. If only bombers and warthunder were this tanky. Though this tankiness does come at a price, as the defensive gunner weaponry sorely lacks damage output. In fact, that's kinda true for all bombers in this game. They're all much tankier than a warthunder, but in exchange they lack damage on their defensive guns. There's one new mechanic introduced in this campaign as well that I'd like to mention, which is making choices. You heard me right.
Alright, Johnson has a ditch.
During Mission 2, after having completed your initial objective, you will get contacted over radio for an optional task.
No problem. There's room to spare in this cockpit. We can't very well leave him there.
Do you land and rescue your buddy, or abandon him? This isn't a fake choice, by the way. The game doesn't guilt trip you if you choose no. Saying no here really means no, as in you just leave the guy to his demise.
Land in a farmer's field right under Jerry's nose? No thanks, I'm not that crazy. The resistance will give him a hand or something.
If you say yes, you'll have to land close to his plane and then take off again with him presumably somehow squishing himself into your cockpit. Coming up, the shortest mini-campaign this game has, the Battle of Korsun, with only 2 missions total. For those that have no idea what the Battle of Korsun is, me neither. But skimming through the Wikipedia page and resuming my skimmed information, I can tell you that it was basically a mini Stalingrad situation, except the Germans did manage to successfully break out. If you consider losing all of your equipment and half your men to be a success. The 2 missions you get here are both ground attack missions, representing the Soviet efforts to eradicate the pocket through extensive aerial and artillery bombardments. The missions themselves don't last long, I finished them in less than 10 minutes, and you spend most of that time bombing the same group of targets over and over again until you get them all, after which you move on to the next group. Rockets once again prove themselves to be more reliable than bombs. There isn't a singular highlight, I mean there's only 2 missions, but there are definitely some cool moments that add a little more to an otherwise short campaign.
Manila, I've picked up a couple of 190s and my gun has been hit. I need assistance. Roger, assisting. I'll be right there. You keep them busy in the meantime. Keep maneuvering. You don't have to ask me twice. Just hurry up, Danilo, please. Thanks, Danilo. Just take my neck again. The Janner. We still have our objective, right? Proceeding to target. Look, few more trucks, the whole fleet. Danilo, look at that. All lined up for us. Yes. Not even camouflaged. We can't have just passed this by, can we? Let's hit them. No more gas, poor ground. Look what we did. Turn around. Well, I'll be enough fuel for the whole army. Good job starting those trucks, Markov. I'll make sure to note this in my report.
Plus, the scenery for the 2 missions definitely adds to the immersiveness factor. The drab colors mixed with the anti-air fire exploding everywhere around you gives some great atmosphere. Overall short, but not lacking. With only 2 more mini-campaigns to go, we're next heading to Bastogne. In real life, this was a heckin' badass, people dying is cool battle. In Wings of Prey, you unfortunately do not get to participate in this badass action, because instead you'll be too busy guarding bombers doing said action for you. Fun. Yep, this is a bomber escort campaign alongside occasional casts. Not only does that sound boring, because it is, but this pack also lacks what made Korsun or Stalingrad slightly more enjoyable. The atmosphere is just not there. There's no liveliness to these missions. You're either guarding some bombers as they slowly make their way to their target, or go from place to place either clumsily strafing trucks, which need direct hits, you don't get aim assist, or rocketing tanks. Funnily enough, the bombers don't even really need you. The game sends so few fighters against you, historically accurate but still, that the bombers' innate tankiness just makes your existence pointless. The only highlight for this mini-campaign in my opinion is at the very end when you unexpectedly receive this over radio.
Attention, listen up. Ground control reports fast-moving targets, presumed to be V-1 rockets. We must intercept them before they get near our base.
Something urgent, novel, exciting. yet it's only a 2-minute section of the entire campaign. I still applaud them for making a model for a singular 2-minute long objective, but not if it comes at the cost of everything else.
Not a single V1 remains. You saved a lot of lives today.
Oh, and you also get to do one of those choices in the first mission. Again, if you refuse, you skip the objective, or if you don't realize you've been given a choice and awkwardly wait for the conversation to continue, like my dumbass. Though it is just an optional objective, even if you do accept.
You bet. We can't leave them like that.
Last campaign, Battle of Berlin. This final mini-campaign has you put the Germans out of their misery through copious amounts of bombs and rockets, as well as a small amount of air-to-air combat, as the enemy sends basically everything they have at you, which now not only includes propeller craft, but also jets. Plus, with all the buildings, you can barely see or hit most of your targets. Rockets, on the other hand, have incorporated peace space technology and are not intimidated nor adhere to things like laws of physics, concrete walls, brick roofs. They're super overpowered. Like the previous Soviet mini-campaigns, the atmosphere is there. Unfortunately, by this point, I've had more than enough of doing the literal same CAS objective every other mission, and it is no longer fun. For example, the last mission, the assault on the Reichstag. Great on paper, you help ground forces assault the Reichstag through CAS, while the enemy is now just straight up sending squadrons of jets to kill you. There are landmarks besides the Reichstag that you end up attacking as well, notably flag towers, which should have no problem demolishing my ass, but whatever. Attacking the Reichstag comes last, and when it does, big fucking disappointment is an understatement.
You just flew in your last mission. Victory!
If I had to point a highlight, it would unironically be the first mission of the campaign, since it is the only one where you aren't tasked with any CAS objective. And it also does the best job of being different.
For more! Oh, two whole squadrons! Sturmovik! Ground control! Ground control! We're under attack by a whole cargo of enemy fighters! Not touch that!
The last mission kinda attempts this with one of its objectives, but it doesn't work.
Attention, Sturmovik. We need your help. Stand by for the targets. Attack two warehouses. German infantry inside. Let's go and help those guys. Get your rockets ready. Your landmark is those two big fires. Your targets are the two low buildings right beside them. Thanks, fellas. We'll take it from here. Best of luck, infantry!
Oh, and an absolute lowlight in the second mission, giving me 2 bombs on an already weak fighter plane and asking me to do CAS. The weapons on this suck and the bombs are tiny. Fuck you! Alright, the finale. Here is your reward for doing all of that work and completing the campaign. Or well, that's what I'm presuming the reward is, since my game instead just froze when I completed the last mission. And I don't want to replay it due to its length. DLC mission time. The original campaign revolves entirely around the Allies, so this DLC attempts to do something similar for the Axis. By Axis I mean the Germans, and by something similar I mean single missions, which, to put it mildly, are kind of like budget versions of the campaign missions, in a bad way. Let me demonstrate via example. Mission 2 of the German DLC. The brief sounds simple: bomb an airfields. Right, let's do it. Our spawn. On the other side of the channel. Our plane. Slow as shit. Rands.
What a thrill. With darkness and silence.
We finally arrived. Let's bomb this airfield to the ground. And why won't these bunkers die? The bomb site is lying to you, that's why. A bit more flangling later and I've done it. Now I have to go all the way back. That'll be fun! It wasn't. So yeah, that's mission complete. Now take that misery and multiply it by 10 to obtain Wings of Luftwaffe. The missions you get are generally terrible, like most of these missions are bomber escorts. Oh, and yes, allow me to present to you the dumbest fucking objective I have ever heard of in any fucking game I have ever played. Protect fighters taking down bombers from other fighters while you're also in a fighter. What? And funnily enough, it's not even a bad mission, solely because you can cheese the objective by attacking and killing the bombers yourself. That completes the mission. All of the objectives given to you in these DLC missions are just nonsensical, frustrating, or a combination of both. There are ones that seem fun on the onset, but then for some reason they just add on more enemies, when there are plenty already that you're dealing with or have dealt with. Or they make you travel a very long distance for no reason, it's just padding, but why? Well, there is one interesting mission out of all of these, which is the last one. Guess why? And it's actually fun. Well, piloting a jet probably helps, but even then there's no protect X or bomb Y. You just go and kill some enemies. When you're hitting the sound barrier, the distances stop mattering. You also have to use a different playstyle since you're in a jet and turn like a brick. All in all, even if it discounts all that novelty, it's still the only good mission this DLC has to offer. And I'm saying that even though I didn't play them all. Very cool of me. I know academics will be proud. Well, anyways, that's the DLC and the campaign both covered. So let's deliver a conclusion and end this video. Despite my whining, this game is not all bad. It was released in 2009, and yet its graphics still hold up at a glance. They really cranked post-effects to the max to make it look decent. The audio side is a mixed bag, the music is good, the weapon sounds are okay, the voiceovers are a thing. You can't play the game multiplayer anymore, so the $10 price tag is purely for the single player campaign as well as single missions. The latter is worthless, but the campaign is decent if you really crave some single player warthunder-esque action. mission. It's not outstanding by any means. This game's like 15 years old at this point, but it works with relatively few bugs besides the game-breaking one in the final mission at least, and I personally enjoyed it. I'd give it a solid 6 out of 10 by 2024 standards. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more of whatever it is I'm making. This took a really long time, so yeah, please do so. Bye.